booth and you're just walking around. And
That's what we did. It was the best ever.
Was it?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, my print. So I'm going to be talking to.
You're talking to Matthew Leffler. So Matthew Leffler, he's yeah, he's on. We got him ready. So he is a podcaster and he owns his own firm. He's an attorney in the trucking realm and. Does this last minute?
Sorry, I was actually working.
What?
I know.
No.
I know, exactly. And trying to eat lunch at the same time. Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome. Good at noon. Good at noon, everybody. Welcome to BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. Drive Safe Dave here, along with Corey from No Cell Technology. What's going on, man?
Hey, man, I was just passing through town, and I decided to drop in, and here I am sitting in Rick's seat.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be a lot of fun. He's going to kind of guest host with us today, kind of go through the numbers and go through the motion. It's just going to be a little bit of fun. First of all, before we get started, tell us a little bit about No Cell, real quick.
No Cell is the leading anti-distracted driving technology in the commercial fleet space. We give the fleet manager and the owner the ability to remove the apps they don't want the driver to have access to while they're driving the vehicle.
And that's only while driving, right?
Only while driving.
Only while driving. So basically, you can't really be reading text messages while you're driving.
Can't be making a TikTok video. Can't be watching Netflix. Can't be watching March Madness.
No selfies.
No selfies when you're driving. Yeah.
Darn, no selfies. But it's good technology. It's good that it's out there saving lives, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We've added another four new companies this week here in Texas.
Boom, right there, making it happen, out there trying to save lives with technology, making a difference in the industry.
Yeah, we're trying every day.
Well, I'll tell you what. So let me get started. We got a couple of things we're going to be talking about today, and one of the first things that we're going to be talking about today is in the news. So the ATRI did put out a report this week.
Yep.
And they listed out some of the top issues in going on out there for trucking, top concerns. What can you imagine would be number one on the list?
I'm guessing it's fuel.
100% right. It is fuel. And you know what?
Bingo.
Put up, and I'll tell you, fuel's kind of, it didn't even make the top 10 last year.
Right.
Because it was a non-issue last year, right?
Yeah.
We were all running $1.50, $1.80 less last year than we're running this year.
Yep.
So it was a non-issue, and lots of freight, lots of, and fuel's down. Here we are, we have a war in Ukraine, and bam, we're all paying very high energy costs. And I'll tell you right now, there's rumors on the streets, and they're all talking, but the United States energy oil reserves is depleting quickly.
Right.
And all that means is, and that does not mean we're going to run out of oil here in the United States.
No.
That does not mean we won't have gas. That does not, what that means is they can't artificially hold the price lower by dumping excess fuel onto the market.
Right.
So the market will decide what the price is.
Right.
Not an artificial price. So
back to supply and demand.
Back to supply and demand where it should come up. You can put that list back up there. I think there's a couple of other interesting things out there. Driver shortage, which was number one in 2021, is number two.
Yep.
There was a release said that driver shortage changed from 81,000 driver shortage down to 78. It's really not much of a change. 3,000 less, but a very small percentage of the overall number. I don't think it changed. Number three, truck parking came out. It was 5 last year. It's number 3. It's moving up more and more and more and more.
Yeah, all the drivers I talk to, that's a huge concern, right? Their time runs out, right? Where are they going to park? Where are they going to park that's safe for the night? Where can they get food?
It's on everybody's mind. And
100%.
I'll tell you, Miss Hutchinson, the leader of the FMCSA, was at the ATA, which you were at.
I was there. Yep.
And she spoke at length about some of the things that were of genuine concern across the country, and I like her.
Yeah.
I think she's smart. I think she's got it together. I think she's going to be good for the industry. I think everybody in trucking likes her. And one of the things she mentioned was that they've already awarded a couple of states funding for truck parking.
Right.
Florida, I think, was one of them, and I can't remember the other one. I think it was Kentucky. But there were 2 states that she issued that they're setting up money. But she, in her deal, she's actually an avid participant in trying to get this fixed. She said, Where are they going to park? On the side of the road?
Not safe.
Yeah, on an exit ramp, off ramp. It's not safe. It's not safe for the driver. It's not safe for the general public at large. And,
Yeah, it's got to be fixed, right? You got to have these guys have a place where they can be safe, they can be off the road, they can find a place to eat, they can take a shower, whatever. I mean, you got to take care of these guys. Yeah.
I mean, believe it or not, that is a concern.
Sure it is.
And let me ask you, and I just want, you can see how that can make it also difficult for women to want to be in the industry.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think safety is probably there, as it should be everyone's number one concern. And it makes a difference. I was interested by this. Number 5, economy, which didn't even rank last year.
Right.
Driver detention actually is almost the exact same. It went from 7 to 6.
Right.
Speed limiters went to 9, and they weren't even in the top 10 last year. And lawsuit abuse and reform came out at 10, and it was ranked number 4 last year. And I think that may have to do with some of the issues at the time. Some of the award settlements, hit headlines.
The nuclear settlements, right?
Yeah, these nuclear verdicts. These settlements hit at the time, and so I think it raised everybody's attention.
Yeah.
So and that, just so we mentioned that, we actually have an individual on today, and even though it's ranked number 10 for last year, we actually have a lawyer that you and I are going to be talking to here in a little bit.
Great.
So Matthew Leffler, we're going to bring him on in just a second. He's pretty busy. He also has a podcast. He's also got a lot going on, but he's an attorney. So we've got to watch what we say. We've got to watch how we talk. We've got to tread a little bit
Do we have to
lightly.
have him sign a disclaimer or something beforehand?
Oh, he sent one. He sent one. Don't believe me. He sent one. We had to sign off. We had to get, they had to meet with our people. His people had to be.
Right. A lot of people deep into this, right?
Yeah, and I was just like, I just want to ask the guys some questions. And they were like, yes, however, and here's a list of notes.
Right.
And here's a list. Yeah, but that's okay. You know what? We're on his time and stuff like that. So I got about 2 more minutes before I go to him. I want to tell you, you've been on the show before, right?
Yes.
You've been a guest here.
Yes. Not in studio. Usually it's 5 a.m. from somewhere.
Yeah. We've changed it to noon now.
Thank you.
We've moved that to noon.
Right.
Right. So to make it a little bit easier around the country, worst case scenario is like 10 a.m. on the West Coast.
Right.
And then best case scenario, 1 in the afternoon in New York.
I love noon. I think noon is so much better than 5 a.m. Right?
You know what? But I'm telling you, can I just give you the only downside of noon? It gets into my lunch hour. Now I don't get one. Sir Rick's like, what do you need one for? It's noon. I mean, you need a diet anyway, drive safe. Maybe
there's an ulterior motive in here, I mean.
Trust me, there's actually, it's to reach more people, have a better live audience.
Right.
Also, our guests are number 1, right? We want to make sure that, because 5 a.m. was kind of tough, right? So you got to call in a little before that too,
right,
and get ready. So, and you got to get up.
Hair and makeup at 4:30 is tough, right?
And okay, no cell technology. Let me ask you a quick question. We all know that distracted driving, number 1, it's just so dangerous.
Yep.
And so it's such a problem. We aren't ever going to fix it ourselves. I mean, right? I mean, honestly, we're not.
Technology got us into it, and technology is going to have to get us out of it.
I agree 100%. Yeah. I just don't think we're that good, right? No. And I'm just going to be, look, a lot of people can call my phone and I can ignore it. The wife dials 911. Hey, you're probably interested in knowing what goes on, right? If she texts you 911. You're probably interested in wanting to know what happened. Now we have wireless telephones. We have, hands-free sets and all that stuff, right? But you shouldn't be reading a text.
No.
Pull over. If it's 911, if it's a big enough deal, pull over.
Correct.
Right? It's big enough, but we can't do that, right? We just don't. There's something in our brain.
We need some help. It's the dopamine of hearing that buzz, beep, or ding, or ring, right?
Right.
You just. I'm sure your phone or somebody's phone right now, when they're watching this, is buzzing, and they're like, "Oh my God, who is it?" Or "Who just liked my text, my LinkedIn post, whatever." Right?
Okay. Yeah, but I just say like the real stuff in life that gets in the way that you and I probably are going to just go, I got to answer that now. That's 911 from the wife.
Right.
I mean, she never does that. I mean, there's something wrong.
As long as you're FMCSA compliant, right, and it's hands-free, one touch. So if you can be in your vehicle and you hit the steering wheel controls and answer the phone, then you're still compliant.
Right? But if she texted, 911.
Right.
Yeah, and you call, that's one thing. If somebody. Why aren't you calling me with a 911 call? Right?
Right.
But, I don't know. I'll tell you, life just gets hard, gets in the way, and I believe me, it becomes confusing. We make commitments. We promise ourselves. We do everything. And let me tell you, we try to do a diet well. And we do everything that we can, and I'm going to tell you, I fall very far short of that. I have improved greatly on distracted driving. My phone no longer rings. I mean, I keep my phone on silent all the time.
Right.
So there's no way to know if it rings or goes off. So it's on silent 24/7.
Great.
So I just have a habit of checking it when I can. No longer. So if I'm in a car, it goes in the console. Just drop it in the console because I'm done with it.
Right.
Now I have a hands-free. If you call me, I'll answer. Maybe. But, you're right. It's going to take something to make a difference, right? And you're there to do it.
We're here to make a difference, right?
Make a difference.
We're stopping I was in Nacogdoches on Tuesday, then I went to Tyler and Gilmer, and now we're here.
Yeah,
right?
and really, before we go to our guest, honestly, and we'll talk again. We're going to talk. We got a couple of things we're going to do together. But number one, I think I want everybody to know that no cell doesn't eliminate the phone in your truck.
No.
What it does is it eliminates the access to certain things while you drive.
Right. It takes away the apps that your fleet manager or owner decides you don't need to have while you're driving. You don't need to make a TikTok video. You don't need to check your CDL live.
Netflix doesn't need
Netflix, yeah. You don't need to watch, a live NC2A football, basketball, baseball game while you're driving.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I was driving. I took, the 20 west to get here, and the 20 east was a disaster. There was a UPS truck that was on its side. There was another truck that had jackknife, and there was a service truck that was on side. I mean, it was an 8-mile backup. I'm guessing some of it. I mean, and the weather is perfect, right? It's 68 and sunny and no rain. So, what's the factor?
It could be, who knows?
Right.
But I'll tell you, distracted driving may play a big part of it.
Right.
And you know what? I've come to learn a lot more about distracted driving over the years, being in safety. I've come to understand that it's much more than just a cell phone.
Sure.
It's this.
Yep.
It's this. It's your hands. It's eating. I mean. Trust me, I've been distracted driving, eating. But no cell helps with the technology side that is pervasive out there right now, creating multiple deaths.
100%.
And we've got to do something about it.
Yeah, 3,142 deaths attributed to the cell phone distracted driving back in 2020.
That's crazy.
That's an insane amount of people.
That's too many.
Yeah.
And there's no telling how many injured.
Oh, yeah. Because it's the least reported cause of
nobody wants to say.
No, nobody gets out of the car after they just...
I was on the phone!
Yeah. I was talking to my whatever.
Talking on the phone! I was texting. Are you kidding me? You pulled right out in front of me. Nobody does that.
Nobody.
All right, let's go. We're going to take a quick break. We come back. We're going to talk a little bit to Matthew, the armchair attorney. Drive Safe Dave here along with Corey here at BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. And look at that professional microphone you got going on there, Matthew. That's not something you just basically show up to a show with when you're not the normal Zoom call guy, right?
Right.
I mean, obviously you've got a little bit of professionalism going there.
The goal is to make sure the sound is the right quality and the lighting is correct. I want to have a good experience for the audience. That's what I'm all about.
Wow.
Wow. You even got kind of a good radio voice going on, Matthew.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I had to go into video because you get what you see, and I think it's necessary. We show off our attributes. Hey, so let me ask you a quick question, Matthew. What is Armchair Attorney?
Armchair Attorney is the law firm that I started fairly recently. I started off by saying, what's a domain that I could purchase that isn't being used yet? I looked up the word Armchair Attorney. No one had it, so I took that domain. Then I incorporated an LLC and eventually got certified by the Supreme Court of Illinois to turn it into a law firm. So Armchair Attorney is the law firm that I am the managing partner of. I work with a lot of clients across the country, but most of it focuses on Illinois, and a lot of it focuses on post-employment restrictive covenants, non-competes, non-solicits, non-disparagements, and non-disclosures. But that's kind of the genesis of Armchair Attorney, and we turned it into a podcast, among other things, and that's kind of what I do with part of my time, but I do a couple other things as well.
So, you piqued my interest. I got all these cool notes here by you, but now you've started to talking about it, and let me ask you a quick question. First of all, the non-compete in the transportation industry, how would these non-competes play a big role in what you're dealing with out there in the market?
If your audience hasn't been following the story of non-competition agreements, it's time to pay attention. These things are absolutely everywhere. Over 30 million Americans, 18% of the workforce, have signed some version of a non-competition agreement. We see them at shippers, we see them at carriers, we see them at brokers, and it prohibits people from doing the thing that they're good at doing for a period of time. What we find often is the case is people don't negotiate these things. 90% of people, when presented with a non-competition agreement, simply sign it. And that means that they're not able to do the thing that they've been trained to do if they ever leave that company they used to be with. We see people that get sued. We see people that get cease and desist letters because they signed a post-employment restrictive covenant not knowing what it means. And so my goal is to educate people about what these things are and why you should be careful about signing them.
Well, I'll tell you. So, I'm assuming here right off the bat that part of the podcast helps educate us on really knowing what we sign, right? I mean, that's not like a new idea, right, Matthew? Being a very understanding of what you put on paper before you let it go. I mean, right? I mean, it's like a check. To me, anytime you sign something, you've basically signed a
blank check.
A blank check for your rights, privileges, right? And that's what you're saying, and I can get it. And you said over 90% of people, when they're fixing to take a job, they're handed at the last minute a non-compete, said, hey, if you want to work here, you got to sign this piece of paper.
Well, so it's about 30 million Americans that have signed these things. But when they're presented, 90% of people, so when they get presented, they just sign it and don't negotiate it. We are trained as lawyers to help people negotiate and to show them the path of getting out of these things and making sure you get the best possible deal. Some states are getting involved, the feds are getting involved. Steam Logistics, among others, have supported a movement called End Non-Compete. You could go to endnoncompetes.com and learn more about it. But this is part of the thing, is edutainment. I want to educate people, I want to entertain people, and I want to tell stories about the supply chain, because the thing about supply chain is you can't opt out of it. It's everything. And law is the same sort of thing. You can't opt out of the law. It's always here. It's always pervasive. And the more you know, the better you're going to be to advocate for yourself.
So, and I understand that we've signed it. Are there opportunities? Let's say you go to work for a brokerage company and you've signed a non-compete, and let's say y'all part ways, right? Or for whatever reason. And whether let's just say you're fired. I mean, there are ways at some point that you can go and battle against these non-competes, right? With help like yours.
You certainly could, but you're going to be in a place of disadvantage. Most courts are going to try to enforce these contracts. They may pull back and say, well, we're only going to enforce it a little bit less restrictive. But if you're let go or you're terminated for cause, that non-compete follows you around. And it just depends on whether the former entity that you used to work for has the desire to mess with your life. And when they do, they send a cease and desist letter to you, the individual. They'll send a cease and desist letter to your new company. And that new company may just say, oh, this looks problematic. We should probably let you go. And so there are ways you can attack these things. Illinois is a good example. In Illinois, if you're making under $75,000, these contracts are illegal. You can't have them. So there is some protections the states are starting to offer, but ultimately, if you sign that document, you have to understand you're probably going to be bound by it.
And these go by state to state, right? The rules are obviously dependent upon the state, right? There's no federal oversight of this. This is basically on state rules, right, when it comes to these non-competes.
Yeah, the feds are trying to get involved. There's proposed legislation that have been stalled in committees, but they are still looking to ban them at a federal level, at least for certain income earners. The one state I didn't talk about is over 30% of these non-competes are with people that are making under $13 an hour. So these are not like just your executive. This is everybody in an organization that is locked out from doing what they're trained to do for a year or 18 months or 24 months.
Who makes $13 an hour anymore? I mean, if you're flipping burgers, you still make $22 an hour, right?
You know what? I never had to sign one working at McDonald's, but you never know. I mean, it's scary to think that, we're worried so much about the competitiveness of what goes on, worried about our competitor, that we would restrict an employee from going and even working for a vendor or a competitor or somebody else in the industry. I guess so. Let's talk about transportation.
Yeah.
And you speak to it in a non-compete. How is it you could go from, let's say, brokerage over to a shipping company, which is two totally different companies, but because they're within logistics that could also follow you all the way over to there?
Absolutely. I mean, it depends on how the company defines the word business. It could be any type of supply chain or transportation. I signed a non-competition agreement. I had a repair and maintenance company called Outsourced Fleet Services. We were performing maintenance and repair all across the country. I was acquired, and as part of that acquisition, I had to have a one-year non-competition agreement. That's what we typically think about for non-competes, is selling of a business or executives that have access to confidential, proprietary, strategic information. But these things are for everybody. Entry-level carrier sales representatives at a brokerage company are signing non-competes. It's absurd. It's unethical. And it's a practice that I like to call out, because if we all talk about it, maybe they'll stop using them. Maybe they'll find a better opportunity to find ways to retain their talent, as opposed to making them afraid to leave because you might sue them.
Is this obviously you're very passionate about this. Was this pretty much what made you get started in the podcast?
Absolutely. I wanted to explain legal topics because I have so many friends, and my LinkedIn box gets filled with people that are struggling with these situations. And most people can't afford a lawyer because we're expensive. And if you're making $40,000 or $50,000 a year and you're presented with a contract that says for 18 months after you leave, you're not going to get to do what you're trained to do. That's one of the things that kind of pushed me into podcasting, of talking about these issues, explaining how people can deal with them, and then hopefully educating people, and then also telling interesting stories, because I love talking to interesting people.
And speaking of interesting people, who's Judge Aquilina?
I love Judge Rosemary Aquilina. She was one of my professors at Michigan State University College of Law. She's a sitting judge in Ingham County, which is in Michigan. She was the presiding judge over the Larry Nassar trial, which, if anyone remembers that trial, it was about a coach who was abusing people in his who were under his tutelage. And so I had her as my very first guest because I admire her work. I admire what she's done. She's a fellow mother of twins, so she has twins. I have twins on the way. And so it was a great opportunity to talk with her. And I took a 7 o'clock at night call with her to do it because, she has a full-time job. So she had to make available in the after hours. But that's who Judge Aquilina is. She's a phenomenal woman. Everybody who's, whether on Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever social media platform, you should follow her, learn about what she writes about, and just understand like how the law works. She does in our conversation, breaks down criminal indictments and what happens in trials. And it's something that most people never get to experience, but learning from an expert, it's fascinating.
Yeah, I personally, not me personally, most people don't know much about indictments, but I'm just I'm just saying some of us have experienced those. And know full well what they mean. Let me ask you, what is your favorite part? I know you get to talk to people and you get to talk to these guests, but when you're doing it, and I have found, and tell me what you think, and when you have guests on and you meet people, usually during the conversation, just like right now, it goes off the rails, right? I mean, you have an intention on what you're going to do, and then all of a sudden the guest says something very interesting, and you then you just want to throw this away because you got a lot going on. You find that to be the case in your podcast?
So for me, no, because I don't actually script anything. I have no set questions I'm going to ask. I want to take that conversation as naturally as we can. I mean, one of the things that gets me passionate is as we talk about safety, right? You guys were on the program just a little bit ago. 20% of commercial vehicles that were inspected during International Road Check failed. Think about that. Think about the scale of equipment that's on the highway that is not safe to operate. This is why I talk about maintenance so much, and my role with Epica Fleet Services is so important, because we are trying to understand how to make the road safer. And every conversation that I ultimately have, whether they're people in supply chain or they're people in the law, is how can we mitigate risk? That's what the law is about, is mitigation of risk. And at the end of the day, the more we talk about these things like safety, and if we get derailed talking about other things, it's an enjoyable experience. So I love all of it. I love to see how it goes. The improv aspect of it is phenomenal. That's why we do them live too. We do them live, we have no script, and we just see what happens.
And as you talk about safety, and as we're continuing, we got Corey here on. He's with No Sale Technologies. His company, and as a guest host, his company comes in. Why don't you tell him a little bit? I know you heard a little bit about. So they actually have a device that blocks in that distracted driving.
Right. We have a no-cell tag that goes in the vehicle. We have an app that goes on the phone, the driver's phone, and then there's a back-end portal that allows the fleet manager to authorize or whitelist the apps that they want to have the driver use while they're driving. When the vehicle's in motion, all the unauthorized apps are physically removed from the phone. So there's,
So we're finding, and when we start to use technologies, and here's my question: when we start to use technologies like this with employees and within companies, it opens up all kinds of cans of worms with you guys, right? I mean, you guys are just standing in the wings. I feel like you're salivating over there sometimes with some of the decisions that we make.
Look, there is very few jobs that are harder than safely delivering freight on time and undamaged.
Agreed.
100%.
And figuring out how do you do that? How do you make it easier to do? And making sure we can eliminate distractions is really important. A technology like no-cell makes a lot of sense. For company-provided phones, absolutely. For personal phones, I'm sure that's an interesting conversation for independents or other operators. But at the end of the day, we want to arrive home in the same condition that we left. And that's why safety is non-negotiable. One of the things I was really excited to talk to you guys about today, I'll just segue briefly to it, is here at Epica, we just completed an acquisition of an amazing company called Fleet Mobile Maintenance. And what Fleet Mobile Maintenance is out there to do is provide on-site services for the repair and maintenance of commercial vehicles. We all know that uptime is important, and if you can have someone come to you to do the services, you are eliminating things like non-billable miles, and you're giving yourself adequate opportunities for more uptime. But when we're trying to understand supply chain, we have to say, is the status quo good enough? Because if it is, I'm very frustrated, because it clearly isn't. So finding ways to eliminate distractions for drivers, both for passenger vehicles and for over-the-road truckers, is important. Maintaining equipment adequately is important. And we don't prioritize these things because we ultimately see accidents are on the rise in some cases, and maintenance is not in the state we want it to be in.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that, Matthew. I'm here at BCB Live. We believe ultimately that safety is every single person's responsibility. It doesn't matter what you do in the industry. I don't care if you sit in the office. I don't care if you're the dispatcher, if you're here, even in here in production. Our job is always to promote safety and find better ways to do this safer. How many industries do you know that you go out into your workplace and 44,000 people will be killed in your work environment next year? There aren't any.
No.
Unless you're on the front lines in the Ukraine, there aren't any. I mean, not in the United States.
This is why we should be upset right now. Being a truck driver is one of the most dangerous professions in the country. Top 10 most dangerous jobs you can do. And just as you've shown in the earlier slides, we can't find parking. We can't find bathrooms. We can't retain the talent. Driver shortage, it's a retention issue. The job isn't what it used to be. In 1980, the average compensation was $38,000 for over-the-road truck drivers. Adjusted for inflation, 120 grand. What do they make today? Is it 120 grand? Probably not.
No.
So we have to come to grips that the supply chain we have right now is by our deliberate choices. We can change that. We should change that, but we have to be passionate about it.
I agree, and as we continue to fight for it here, fight for it there, and we continue to talk about it, that is our ultimate goal here on BCB Live, the safest station in the nation, is to promote, find new ways. That's the reason you're here, Matthew, to talk. That's the reason Corey's a guest host in here. We're trying to promote and educate everyone out there that there are better ways to do it, and it takes all of us. And I just first of all, thank you very much for what you do in that regard, in educating and also having that passion for safety. I appreciate it a lot. What kind, and I know, I want to make sure that I get out of here. We only have like 1 or 2 more minutes. How is it that people can reach out to you, whether it be in this industry or listen to you on your podcast?
Well, I appreciate that. You can find me on LinkedIn, Matthew Leffler. You can look up armchairattorney.com. You can find me there. I have the Twitter account. It's Armchair Addy, A-T-T-Y. Why? Because A-T-T-Y is the abbreviation for the word attorney. I'm also on TikTok. I don't do it while driving. Obviously, that's not a good solution. But I do have at least 50 followers, so it's got to be catching on. And then the podcast, you can find Armchair Attorney on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. And we're continuing to have a great conversation tomorrow. My show is with Sarah Barnes-Humphrey from Let's Talk Supply Chain. That'll be phenomenal. But that's how you can find out more about me. And then Epica Fleet Services, epicafleet.com. You can find all the solutions you need for repair and maintenance in the United States.
How often does your podcast go on, Matthew, and when?
That's a great question. It is usually once a week. And I'll tell you, everyone who's ever given me advice says, Matt, you have to be consistent. And I say, no, I do what I feel like. So sometimes there's 1 a week, sometimes there's 3, I don't know. My most popular podcast right now is me reciting the poem The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. So it's not even supply chain or law related. So yeah, once a week typically.
All right, sounds like fun. I can't wait to get it. I love Poe, and maybe I'll listen to it. I'll listen to you read it to me. That'll be a lot of fun. But I can't wait, and I hope everybody gets out there. Hey, before you go, Matthew, I got to have you do something for me. I got to have you say your name, who you're with, and that you're watching BCB Live, the safest station in the nation.
My name is Matthew Leffler. I am the Director of Business Development for Epica Fleet Services and the Armchair Attorney. And you are watching BCB Live, the safest station in the country. Is that right? Did I say it right?
The safest station in the nation.
The safest station in the nation. We can fix that in post-production.
That's right. We're editing that now. You know, that's the fun thing about live. You have a hard time editing it.
That's why
hey, Matthew,
because I can't edit it.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Matt. Hey, thanks for coming on. You know what? We're going to have you back here pretty soon. We're going to call you back. We're going to come up with a couple of things and maybe a couple of problems I'd like you to solve. How about next time?
I'd love to. Let's talk about nuclear verdicts. I'm very passionate about those.
Oh, we are too. We are ready. And you know, we're doing pretty good down here in Texas with tort reform.
Yep.
I don't know if you've heard. We're doing a little bit of we're making a few changes. But, okay, I'll tell you what, we'll talk to you soon, okay, Matt?
Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. All right, that's Matthew over there.
That's great.
Great, huh?
Yeah.
So we have a show that we do on Thursdays with legal analysts, legal talk, and we try to find guys that offer up answers for the law. And I think that's neat. I think it's fun.
Great.
Yeah, it's been a great segment thus far. And Matthew What a great radio voice.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
Kind of jealous.
Yeah.
I mean,
He's
seriously.
got the face and the voice. I don't.
Yeah, I know. Got it. Yeah, he's got it going on. I'm a little bit jealous. You're not taking my job. All right, we'll be back, Corey. We'll be back in right after this message in just a second with some safety. All righty, and welcome back to BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. That was some scary stuff right there. Somebody almost stole my Cheetos. All right, I'll tell you what. We've got a little bit going on. Double Check Dale in studio. Going to talk a little bit about
triangles, emergency triangles, where to set them out at, and what to do if your truck breaks down. First thing you want to do is get those four-way flashers on. Then you want to get a safety blaze on or safety vest on.
Go ahead.
Just go ahead and get those on. And then you want to set them out. Now, depending on where you are, if you're on a divided highway, you know, the placement's a little bit different than what we talked about yesterday. So if you're on a divided highway, like I said, no triangle gets put to the front of the vehicle. Just one, the first triangle gets put at 10 feet from the rear of the trailer. Second one is 100 feet. Third one is 200 feet. And there we go. We got a nice little diagram of that. That first one is really important, 10 foot. That's 10 foot back from the trailer on the lane closest to the traffic. And then you kind of want to angle them over to the shoulder to kind of give oncoming traffic, you know, some directions where to go so they don't come running right up behind you. So that's how you do it on the divided highway.
It's also on a one-way.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's a
divided one. Okay, yes.
It's also done that way on a one-way road.
That is correct.
Because that's kind of
that's why we have them here.
I'm just saying it also, I mean, if you're going to throw out there all one-way roads out there, right? Have you ever been on a one-way road? I have. I don't know. Why are you messing with my triangle?
Because
dude? You're not supposed to be jacking with my triangle.
You were messing with it while I was doing it, so I just, you know, fair play here.
You know, we talk about, Corey, we're talking about placement of triangles out there on all commercial motor vehicles since 1974 have been required to carry them.
Right.
Knowing how to place them is just as important as putting them out.
Yeah.
You don't want to put them out incorrectly because then it directs traffic bad. You need to know where they go in the front, where they go in the back, when, where, how, and why, so that they can be utilized safely. And if you don't do them right, it's actually a DOT fine, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And what kind of spurred this, this week about it is we watched a video last week where they were placed incorrectly, and the driver, has kind of followed the direction of them and put himself in an unsafe place. So we thought, hey, you know what? Maybe we can share some information about triangles, how to set them out, where to set them, and why to set them the way you do. And so that's what we're doing this week.
I don't know if you know this or not, Corey. You only have about 10 minutes. The law says 10 minutes.
Put them out.
To put them out.
Okay.
And I know you've gone down the freeway and seen vehicles on the side of the road and they don't have triangles out.
I've seen them be put out incorrectly, and it's dangerous.
It
right?
is.
You're doing 70 or 65, or 75 here, right? And if they're not out correctly or not enough space, and you come up on them and you're in trouble.
Right. They're definitely, I've seen them packed in, three together within 15 feet, all three of them.
Yep.
Yeah, and they're not done correctly. It's important, and that's why we're talking about it today. We're making sure everybody knows how they're supposed to be set out, in what manner they're supposed to be set out. Yesterday we did the 2-lane road. And then I've got a feeling tomorrow's going to be curves and hills. What do you...
I'm not tipping my hand there. I'm just...
But, yeah, these are good stuff. All right, let's go ahead and jump into some videos because we want to talk about videos.
Yeah. And I think we got great video here, and we were just talking about triangles. This driver sent this one in, and so look, this truck has this triangle set out. Now, the placement in itself isn't too bad. They're probably a little too much scrunched in there.
They are.
Okay, so that's the placement of triangles. And so this is why this truck is stopped, because load securement is also important.
Oh.
Yeah.
Forklift came out of the back of the truck there, so just thought,
Those are hard to pick up.
I mean, you could do it.
With another forklift.
With another forklift. So anyway, but it just really goes to show, how to set the triangles out, and why we do it is to help direct that traffic over there.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that it wasn't set out correctly. The placement wasn't done. It's 10, 100, 200.
Yep.
And this is a one-way road, and here's one. Yep. It's not actually a divided highway unless you want to call that open area down there on the ground.
Well, there is a division.
But this is more a one-way road, and it's important to understand how they set out. It should be 10 feet on this first one, 100 back in the middle, and then 200 back closest to the shoulder, so that you angle them out.
Yep.
Right. So that's how they should be set out, and it's important that we know that. Okay, next video. Hey, great video, by the way. How to tie that in?
Yeah, I just drivers
got to put that all together, didn't you?
The drivers were paying attention and watching it and saying, hey, you got to see this.
It's not all random. All right, Corey, here what we got here. Do you understand what's going on here? We're driving 50 miles an hour.
Okay.
We're very close to the vehicle in front of us. There's no room to maneuver.
There's no stopping distance.
There's none. You're
within. You're right.
You're within how much time? What does it say there?
0.5?
0.5 seconds behind the vehicle in front of you. Yeah.
Nothing but trouble.
No, there's no room, and it's shorter than the length of this tractor trailer on your left. So there's really nowhere to go, nothing to do. You've got to slow down. And it doesn't really matter what speed you're going. If you maintain that seconds, the couple of seconds.
Right, 3 seconds, right.
You're going to have enough room no matter what speed you are.
And the goal is to have enough room no matter what speed you are.
And we learn from these videos, because let me tell you something. The reason we show these is we're sent these in, and these are real every day, actually happened yesterday or the day before. So they're not like 10-year-old videos. These are actually real videos.
Yep.
And they matter, and it shows what we do in real time, what's going on, and the knowledge and the information below actually is a diagram of acceleration, speed, and the foot pedal, brake knowledge, and all of this other stuff going on to try to show you the mechanics and the analytics of what's happening in this particular video. But ultimately, you're too close.
Right. Yeah.
All right, next video.
It's the same thing. We're in the nighttime, and again, we have to increase our space. When adverse conditions, darkness is an adverse condition. We need to increase that space. We're less than a second behind there. And so many drivers think, well, I've been doing this for years. I know how far I'm following. You start showing these videos, sharing them with them, and they see what the distance is. They go, oh my goodness, I'm a lot closer than I thought I was. And so that's why we show these every day.
At 66 miles an hour, you're traveling at almost 100 feet per second.
Right.
And you're in a dangerous hit. Your reaction time is 1 second, and if not a little more. And now, if not distracted,
if not
distracted, I love, right there.
Right. If you're looking down at a phone or
whatever, then there's no telling how long it's going to take. But right now in those videos right there, it's talking about being distracted. Double check. Corey with no cell deals with and communicates. And I want you and I want you to speak to a second. You know, he made mention about either a phone that you're giving at work or you're using a private phone. Speak to that in that manner.
So I get that question every day, probably 30 times a day.
And your response to that?
My response is, what does the cell phone policy say? What is the safety policy of the company? Does it say, hey, you do not use your company cell phone to text or watch movies or whatever on the company phone while you're driving, but on your personal phone you can watch Netflix? No, right? FMCSA is any mobile device that's in the vehicle has to be hands-free, one touch, right? So it doesn't specify between company phone and personal phone. It's all handheld devices that are in the vehicle. So I go right back to the company and ask them, what's your cell phone policy? So I mean, the drivers have their personal phones, great, right? Are you allowing them to text and make videos and watch Netflix and all that kind of stuff
with their
personal? Right.
No.
It's every device, every handheld device that's in the vehicle is under that safety or cell phone policy, FMCSA compliance.
Right. And you know what? If you're passionate about safety, it shouldn't matter.
Right.
Yeah. If you're passionate about safety, that question doesn't even come up. You know that it applies to everything.
Exactly.
Right. But let me ask, so I ask drivers, what apps do you actually need when you're driving, right? And when you go in, and I'll go in and I'll start with a room full of drivers, and they'll just be peppering me with questions, right? And then it comes right down to it. What do you need, right? Well, I need whatever, nav. I need my ELD. I need whatever. Okay, but do you need Netflix?
No.
Do you need to make a TikTok video? Do you need to check your CDL life? I mean, do you need, no.
You need internet.
Right.
Yeah. No, you don't.
Right. I mean, do you need to jump on and do some Amazon shopping while you're driving? No.
No, you don't.
No.
Really. But a navigation tool?
Sure.
Why wouldn't you be able to
Right.
use it? That's what it's for.
You got to know where the low bridges are, right?
Yeah.
So.
I mean, you want to be warned.
Right.
I mean, and you turn right here. It's
Yeah.
nice when somebody says
Oh,
that.
absolutely.
Yes.
Especially the voice you want, right? Yeah.
And I'm really confused because my wife has it over at she's got some Australian dude telling her which way to go.
You should be worried.
I am worried. But no, I tell you what, it's fun to talk about it. It's fun to know that we're getting solutions out there. And no sales offered, one up, right?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, we always say we get up early every morning to make sure your drivers get home safe every night, right? And we do. And every install is potentially saving not only the life of the driver, but the life of the vehicle that is potentially T-boned by that driver.
And I'll tell you, Corey, we feel the same sentiment. That's what we do here every
Which is
single
why I'm
day.
here,
Yeah.
right?
We're in the same choir over here. We're all singing the same music.
Yep.
And you know what? There's got to be more of us. I think our voices are getting heard. I think it's changing. I think it's an evolution. It's a small step process. You got to take steps, baby steps to get there. But
Sure.
I think that people are coming around when it comes to safety.
I think they are. I think the cloud of everything else is starting to clear, and they're like, oh, we got to keep these drivers safe. We got to keep these vehicles productive and on the road.
Right. And just saying, be careful out there. This
Yeah.
doesn't work anymore.
No.
Does it?
Nope.
Doesn't
You've
work.
got to use the technology that's available to make things better and safer.
All righty. Hey, man, I want to thank Corey for coming in and being guest host today. I want to thank Double Check Dale for coming in and putting up with me putting this triangles together. And also, I want to thank Blake over there manning the boards and making sure I had my
Blake.
cool diagrams up there earlier. So all these things coming together, man, it makes for a great show. Thanks, Matthew, also for joining us today. We'll see y'all later again next time here on BCB Live.
The safest station in the nation.
That's right. Thanks, guys.